Good morning and welcome to the Lurzday Thursday podcast. It has been a long break since we last saw a Lurzday Thursday podcast. The last one was on, December 18th, I believe, because then we had Christmas, then we had New Year's Day, and finally, Lurzday Thursday is here again and back for your entertainment. And I'm glad to be here. So, a few notes. This is the time for highlights and salutations. This is normally a time where I would highlight comments, pages, individuals, potential advertisers on my podcast, but we're still fairly new. We don't have any yet. And if you're interested, give me a shout. Like, subscribe. You can get a shout out during the highlights and salutation segment on the Lurzday Thursday podcast. I am Rudolph Lurz. I am your host of Lurzday Thursday, and I am an educator and writer. And as I looked at all the different podcasts around in this day and age, I thought I can do just as well and potentially better than some of the stuff that I see online, because this is 100% real, 100% unedited, 100% just the chaos of my mind. Not AI generated drivel, not nonsense or chasing after fame or fortune or other weird influencers that are out there. This is just me, middle-aged educator, speaking about the things that I find interesting. So, if you're interested in joining me in this endeavor, please like, subscribe, comment, and you could potentially be featured on the highlights and salutation segment at the beginning of the next Lurzday Thursday episode. Which brings us to the next segment of my podcast, which is dad jokes. As a father of two, one of the first things my wife got me was a book of dad jokes. And now multiple family members and friends have given me dad jokes books as well. So I have a whole litany, a whole encyclopedia of various terrible jokes. And that's a great way to start a podcast. So, here's the first dad joke of the day. A widow asked me to say a word at a funeral. I told her plethora. Plethora. And she said, "Thank you. That means a lot." As an English teacher, I appreciate that one. So I've heard a recent debate on the generation that Forrest Gump is in. Is Forrest Gump in Gen X? Maybe Gen Y? Definitely not Gen Z, but Gen X is a possibility. You think Forrest Gump is Gen X? No. He's Gen A. Oh, man. You have to see Forrest Gump in order to get that. Man, I appreciated that one. All right. The next segment, after those terrible jokes, the next segment of this podcast is the quote of the day. So the quote of the day today comes from President John F. Kennedy, who noted that those who seek power, who foolishly seek power, it's an important caveat, those who foolishly seek power by riding the back of a tiger usually wind up inside it. Those who foolishly seek power by riding the back of a tiger usually wind up inside it. Great, great quote. I've talked previously about figures whose ambition seeks to defy basic ethics or humanity. And I've recited Robert Frost's The Road Not Taken in demonstrating that, to me, where you wind up is dependent a lot on an intersection between talent and opportunity. It's making the best decision in your present circumstances, the right decision in your present circumstances, and then being comfortable with that decision, knowing that you, as President Theodore Roosevelt once said, you did the best you could, or all that we can do is the best we can with what we have, where we are. I love this Kennedy quote because, if you haven't been able to tell already, I am all about finding peace with where you are, but also being able to recognize the opportunities when they arise, but still making the right decision based on where you are and the ethics that you hold. And that might mean that you don't advance as far as some others might fly. But those who rush the process, those who try to force the issue, or those who take shortcuts, and potentially unethical ones, they might appear to be rising, but in reality they're like Icarus from Greek mythology, flying too close to the sun, or as Kennedy mentions, there's these folks who foolishly ride to power by riding the back of a tiger, and then they usually wind up inside the tiger. Hence, the right approach, doing the right thing, even if it means staying in the position you are in, because that's the best place for your family, that's the best place for your children, that's the best place and the only ethical place that you can stay, if it means betraying someone else or sacrificing who you are in order to take that leap, or to try and force your ambition to advance to a place that you can't and shouldn't go. The right thing is difficult to do, but it's important to continue to do it. So don't be like these folks who ride on the backs of tigers thinking that they're in control. If your ambition leads you to tigers, and then you think you can control that tiger by riding it, it's unlikely that you'll be riding that tiger very long. So, love that quote from Kennedy. Those who foolishly seek power by riding the back of a tiger usually wind up inside it. And that brings us to our next segment, which is the Lurs World Rankings. Each week on the Lurzday Thursday podcast, I rank randomly in my power rankings the top 5 things that I saw in a previous week and the bottom 5 things. Now, in this week, I've got a few more than usual. I had a larger selection to choose from because I've been with my family the entire holiday season, and thus this is the first Lurzday Thursday episode in several weeks because of Christmas on the 25th and New Year's on the 1st. So it's a very difficult thing to create these power rankings this week, but I did my best, and here's what I got. So we're going to start with the top 5 this week. start with the top five. I'll mix this up. Normally I go bottom five, then top five. We're going to start with the top five this week. Things that I think are awesome. One, that's 5Ks as trips. So I am not a fast runner. The best time I've done on a treadmill, I think, is around 29 minutes and 15 seconds. The best time I've done at a 5K is the last one I did for my birthday last year in Dallas. I ran 32:45, which was very slow for what I can do. I'm pretty slow, but I'm a little faster than that. That was disappointing to me. But whether you finish that race fast or slow, if you're running with friends and you're reconnecting with some folks that you haven't seen in a while, having a good trip, that's such a cool thing. And I wondered for so long why some of my friends, especially those around my age, middle-aged, older, really got into running when they got older. And I'm like, why are you in, like, running is like what you do to stay in shape. Didn't think it was a whole community. Didn't get it. But I get it. I understand it. And I just signed up for my next birthday 5K, which will be in Oklahoma City on September 27th. I'm doing the Heroes and Villains run just because it happened to be near my birthday. And it's the same company that put on the one that I did in Dallas last year, the Summer Meltdown series. The Bigfoot Running Company. Bigfoot. Really liked how they did things. That was awesome. I didn't finish as fast as I wanted to, but they give age group awards. They give recognition. You get your little finish line photo. But most importantly is getting together with some friends, having a nice run, maybe having a nice cold beverage afterwards. That is cool. And I think I'm going to make that a birthday tradition because I get it now. So all you folks that have been in this world for a lot longer than I have, I understand why you're here. I get it. And I'm with you. 5Ks as trips. That's number 5 in my power rankings this week because I'm excited to go to Oklahoma City. Again, traveling to a random city is fun. Place I haven't been, exploring a city, running a 5K. I get it, and I'm in it. So 5Ks as trips, maybe even 10Ks once I get in a little bit better shape and I continue to run. So I'm hoping to break 30 minutes this year, so pull for me. Give me a few words of encouragement as we get closer to September 27th. Because Sunday Fun Day is going to be a Sunday Run Day. Number 4, prime rib. I am really into cooking. I love it, and I love New Year's Day. New Year's Day and Thanksgiving, I think you have. If you are one of my 12 or so viewers who's been a loyal viewer for my podcast thus far, you'll know that my favorite holidays are Thanksgiving and New Year's. Not New Year's Eve. Not particularly into that. I'm into New Year's Day. And prime rib, it hits the list this week because I cooked it on New Year's Day and it was awesome. It was incredibly expensive. Did not appreciate the price. That was sort of a sticker shock from last year because the price went up about $100, maybe even $150. That was ridiculous. A 10-pound standing rib roast cost me over $300 this year. Ouch! And then because you had to reserve it in advance, at least my local butcher, and at other cities I've lived, I also had to reserve that standing rib roast in advance. So you pick it up, they've already cut it for you. They've already wrapped it for you. It'll be a very bad move to make a face or to protest or try to nope, I'm gonna this takes these backsies. So you get to the butcher's shop counter and you just no matter what that price is, you have to keep a smile on your face, even if it hurts, and just say like, thank you. And it did hurt, but I was also excited to cook that prime rib, and it was outstanding. Outstanding. So shout out to Eggers in Spokane North. So I live in North Spokane. Eggers North, Eggers Meats. You made a great prime rib, so shout out to you. And you know this is real because I'm not being paid for any advertisements. I don't have any advertisers. Barely have any viewers. So you know that that's the truth, and they provided an outstanding prime rib roast, and I respected it. I gave it a great cook, had an amazing New Year's Day prime rib feast, and most importantly, not a single part of that prime rib went to waste because my wife is really into soups, so we made a great soup. I ate the leftovers, thin sliced leftover prime rib, just crisped up in the frying pan. Amazing for sandwiches and wraps. And then in the process of taking all the remnants and making a beef broth, you separate the fat from the broth. So you got broth for soup, and you got the fat, which can also be used for cooking. So we got a big jar of prime rib fat. That'll be useful in future dishes. I think there's like some sort of Yorkshire pudding, which is actually a roll, like a bread roll. Might make that, because you make that with beef fat. In any case, not a single part of that prime rib went to waste. We honor that cut of meat, and it was outstanding. So number 4, prime rib. Number 3, the kind of people that I think make the world work. So these are snowblower guys. I think every neighborhood's got a snowblower guy. And it's something that I noticed this week because we've had a lot of winter weather. And we weren't expected here in Spokane to get a whole lot of snow. And this is the wild thing to me about winter, because if in the summer, when there's a huge storm coming, it's going to rain a lot. Everyone sees that coming from several hours and usually a few days out. They know it's going to be bad. But last night, about 7 o'clock, we all got messages on our phones like winter storm warning, squall warning, like don't drive if you don't have to. It's going to be whiteout conditions. Because suddenly what was supposed to be a few flurries for us turned into a full-on storm. We got 8 inches of snow. 7 to 8 inches of snow is what came over here in the north part of Spokane. Out of nowhere. So we got covered in snow. A lot of people had trouble getting up and down the hill. I'm glad we were in for the night, but I've got snow tires, so I was thankful for those when I drove my kids to school this morning. But anyways, the snowblower guys. These are the folks who, they're not paid to do it. They're not getting anything out of it, but with no one asking them, with no one telling them to do it, they get out there in the early morning hours with their snow blowers and they carve a path, clearing out the neighborhood sidewalks. They start at their house and they move along, and then at least the ones in my neighborhood, they just keep going. They clear one side of the street, then the other, then even up down. Like the guy in our neighborhood, one of my neighbors, went all the way up the next street. That is awesome. That's the kind of selfless acts of service that make the world a better place. So thank you to my neighbor, the snowblower guy, and thank you to all the snowblower guys in all the neighborhoods out there, because the world is a better place because of you. I don't have a snowblower, I still, when I shovel my own driveway, I try to do my own driveway, and then I try to, if the snowblower guy has not come through yet, I try to at least get up and down the nearest parts of the street, a few houses. I try to do my best. I try to do my part. But I recognize that's limited, and I recognize that for the majority of us, that's the max that we do. But to the snowblower guys out there who are out there not just doing their own limited driveways or even a few segments of sidewalk, but all down one side of the street, then down the other side of the street, hats off to you. Power rankings. You make number 3 because the world needs you. The world needs you. Number 2, as an old guy myself, I loved to see Philip Rivers, 44 years old, retired for 5 years, hasn't thrown a football in a competitive game, and the Indianapolis Colts called upon him when they were out of options. All their quarterbacks were injured. And he stepped up at 44 years old and did a respectable job. He was a middle of the league quarterback in terms of his performance. Threw a few touchdown passes, kept the games competitive, kept his team in the game. They lost all 3 of the games he started. But it was still a noble effort, and it didn't lose because of him. He kept that team, the Indianapolis Colts, he kept his team in the game, and he showed that old school ability to read defenses despite limited arm strength or physical ability. He couldn't outrun anybody. He couldn't do a great job evading people. He's old and slow, just like me. So to see Philip Rivers out there throwing touchdown pass, he's a high school football coach, seeing all his players on TV, like cheering him on. That was amazing. And I'm sure I'm not the only person who was cheering for Philip Rivers, even though I've never been a fan of the Colts, never been a particular fan of Philip Rivers. But he went out there, he gave it his all. He left it all on the field, and he can walk away with his head held high because that was awesome to see. And I was cheering for him. Sorry you didn't win, Mr. Rivers, but you certainly had a fan over here in Spokane. I was cheering for you the entire time. And finally, as a football coach, I loved to see what happened at the end of the Rose Bowl. So Indiana absolutely annihilated Alabama in the Rose Bowl to advance to the college football playoffs semifinal. They were favored. No one thought they were going to. People didn't think they were going to win by that much. A lot of people picked Alabama, actually. But they won handily. They dominated the line of scrimmage. They beat Alabama. But what I loved, and which was why this is number 1 in my power rankings this week, who got the credit, who got the glory? Somebody who normally does not receive that kind of glory. That was the Rose Bowl MVP, went to Pat Coogan, the Indiana University center, an offensive lineman. And the team went crazy when he was announced as the Rose Bowl MVP, coordinating the protection, dominating the line of scrimmage, leading an offensive line that paved the way for a whole bunch of rushing yardage. Guys who never get the glory. It reminded me of when Orlando Pace received Heisman Trophy consideration for being an absolutely dominant offensive lineman for Ohio State several decades ago. You don't see offensive linemen get that kind of recognition very often, so it was very cool to see Pat Coogan pick up the Rose Bowl MVP. So that's the top 5 of the Lurs World Power Rankings. Bottom 5 coming. Number 1, or number 5, is what I call sea biscuits. I've done a lot of driving, a lot of traveling over the holiday season. And there's a scene in the movie Seabiscuit, which is about a horse, where the jockey has to tell another jockey how to approach a one-on-one race against War Admiral, which was one of the most well-regarded thoroughbreds of the time period. And Seabiscuit was a smaller horse and not given much of a chance against War Admiral, especially without his act was regular jockey. So his jockey's giving advice on how to approach that race. And he says, so get out ahead, get a good start, get out ahead of War Admiral. And this is how you're going to do the pacing. Then he says, and then you're going to pull up and they're going to let War Admiral catch up. He's like, what? Yep, let him pull right alongside you. Let Seabiscuit get a long look at the Admiral, then watch him fly. So my bottom 5 goes to drivers who act like Seabiscuit, and they slow down. They slow way down below the speed limit. And then you get in the left lane to pass them. And then when they see you pull up alongside, suddenly they're Seabiscuit and they take off. So now you have the choice to either slide back behind them or you had to hit the accelerator. Now you're going faster than the speed limit. Seabiscuits, man. Bottom 5. Not cool. If you're going to be slow, stay slow. Don't turn into Seabiscuit the second that a car pulls up alongside you and then take off again. Number 4. I've mentioned this before, I think in my very first episode of my podcast, but this one is a particularly bad one. That is H3N2 subclade K. That is the dominant flu variant. It is a mutation, and it was one that was not anticipated because it's a mutation to be one of the dominant strains this year. Hence, it is evading the flu vaccines that are going out there. We have a low rate of vaccination, so that already hurts us as a society. It's running at about 25%. So we got particularly vicious flu variant out there that is really hurting people. So be safe. Wash your hands, get rest, get fluids, and be aware that this H3N2 subclade K, number 4, my bottom 5 this week, because it should be number 1. If this weren't just my randomly generated, my random thought out list, this would be number 1. But it's a nasty variant out there. I've mentioned it before. Cold and flu season is really rough. It's in the schools, it's in the daycares, it's ripping through teachers, students alike. So be safe out there and stay healthy in a tough place to stay healthy. Number 3 is a Nottingham Forest fan. This one hurt to watch. That was John Victor, Nottingham Forest goalkeeper. Actually has done a pretty good job as number 1. Forest beat West Ham yesterday to get 7 points clear of the relegation zone. That was nice. That was a tough win. I think a draw would have been the more fair result. But then again, we've had some, like our game against Man City, a draw would have been a fair result there, considering how well we played in the loss. But tough stretch of games, 4 straight losses, and then we beat West Ham. But against Villa, at Villa, John Victor, who's made some great saves, who's done a decent job and actually took the job away from a very good goalie, very good goalkeeper, Matt Sells. That was one of the top goalkeepers of all in the Premier League last year. But he got injured. John Victor, our backup, stepped in and did very well. And even when Matt Sells was able to play, John Victor kept going out there. But man, this bottom 5 moment against Villa got 3 defenders in support, 1 offensive player coming forward. It's covered. Stay back. But he went so far outside the penalty area to try to sweep that ball away. long-range shot in the net, and John Victor injured himself in the process. So not only we give up a goal, but now we're down a goalie, a goalkeeper. Keep using goalie, soccer's goalkeeper. So bottom five in the not power rankings this week. John Victor, man, what are you doing? And it's sad too, because moments like that are tough because he's injured now, and I think he's lost a lot of trust from Nottingham Forest and being able to go out there and be a serviceable backup, and definitely won't get the job back from Sells unless Sells gets hurt. But his injury's bad. The decision was bad, but I'm more upset. I'm more saddened by the injury. So get well soon. Everyone makes bad decisions. Everyone, if you're being honest, all of us have been on the bottom five of somebody's list at some point in our lives. So John Victor, tough moment, bottom five. Get well soon, recover, and hopefully that you come back stronger from it, having made the error. Number two, not top five. That's one I think is really weird. That's mic sizes. So in preparation to do this podcast, I've seen a few. I don't have a mic. I don't have fancy equipment. I don't know how to edit. So you get the full, unedited, unabridged madness from my mind each week. One of the reasons that you can tell that what I say can be trusted, because I don't have the ability to go back and edit it. I rely on my phone's mic. But those who have fancier equipment, I don't get the mic sizes. They're either huge, giant monstrosities, or they're like what I've seen popular out there on some of these folks that are more mobile and go out there on the street. They're just tiny little things, and they're holding it like it's one of these big mics or even traditional sized mics. It's just like they're putting this tiny little mic in their interviewees' faces and just like, time to get your opinion. Just like, what is that thing? Is that an earbud? What are you putting that tiny mic in my face? So the sizes of the mics seem off to me, because they're either gargantuan or they're minuscule. Just get a regular size mic. Mic sizes, number two. Finally, text solicitors. So I've noted in previous episodes of this podcast, that the fraudulent in Dante's Inferno are placed below the violent, as in Dante saw thieves and fraud artists as worse than violence in terms of your level of offense, because it took some preconception, it took some forethought to carry out these acts of fraud, knowing full well what you're doing, that this is how you choose to live your life. And I'm seeing more and more invasive fraud artists that are not just calling, but they're trying to reach out via text or LinkedIn message or social media message. They're out there just sending out probably thousands of these, and they enlist AI to help them do it. I got one at 5:46 in the morning on a Sunday. And it's obviously an AI chatbot. Just like, are you interested in this random thing? Just like, I texted back, who I normally don't text back. Don't engage with them. Delete, block, report spam. That's really the only thing. You can't, engaging with them doesn't help. But I was upset. I said, like, who are you? And why are you texting me at 5:46 on a Sunday morning? It's like, go take a look in your reflection, and go take a look at a mirror and tell your reflection that you're going to be better at life tomorrow. And they just, like, obviously there was a pause, and then like the AI chatbot said, like, hi, I'm Bethany from Gallagher. Are you interested in this opportunity for 20 hours a week, a week? 20 hours of work a week for some consulting services? Just like, I don't believe that you're Bethany from Gallagher. I believe that if I click on any link that you're providing, that's going to fill my phone with malware. And two, even if you are Bethany from Gallagher, now you're blocked as reported as spam, because that is messed up. 5:46 on a Sunday. You shouldn't have your AI chatbot working if you're legitimate. And if you're fraudulent, then you belong in Dante's Inferno, the 8th level, in one of those pits. So, number 1, not top 5. Those tech solicitors, they're the worst. Okay, that brings us, we are right on schedule for the Lurs World News. 5 interesting stories, not ones that are dominating the headlines. You get enough of those. You should be aware of what all the bad stuff that's out here. This is more like interesting stuff, things that I think are cool. So one of the first things I saw, Pierce Brosnan, I think is an underrated Bond. He was the Bond before Daniel Craig, and he did one of my favorite films, which is GoldenEye. I used to love the game on N64, one of my favorite video games of all time. Good movie, too. Good movie. And I think this sort of went downhill as he did more and more of them. Tomorrow Never Dies is another one of his films, like that one. But then he got, I think, Die Another Day. It started to get bad. The World Is Not Enough was okay. So again, that's his Bond movies like declined slowly until they hit rock bottom with. Is it Die Another Day? No, it was the one of Halle Berry, and there was an ice cavern. I don't even remember what his final. I think Die Another Day was actually a Daniel Craig movie, so my apologies on that one. Brosnan was GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies, The World Is Not Enough, and then there was one more at the end of that was just not very good. But love GoldenEye. Those other ones are okay. And he recently expressed interest. At least that's the story. Because I saw that he'd expressed interest in playing an older retired Bond brought back to service. That's a Bond movie that I would love to see. And the stats show there's a lot of nostalgia out there. I know my generation would be into that. And previous generations have shown, like Sean Connery in Entrapment and The Rock. Awesome. People love watching old guys just wrecking people. Watching Sean Connery in The Rock and Entrapment, yes. Watching Pierce Brosnan as an old guy, yes. Liam Neeson in Taken, yes. There's an appetite out there for it. So if you're watching this and you are ready to greenlight a new project, please greenlight Pierce Brosnan coming back as old James Bond. I would watch that, and I don't think I would be alone. 2, NYC Midnight, that's going in the Arts and Literature column. 2, the Pop-Tarts Bowl got 8.7 million viewers, the most of any non-major bowl since 2019-2020. And it shows that there's, even in a space where there's not a lot of good quality bowl games, their marketing, their branding, Pop-Tarts Bowl is really cool. I enjoy it. Trophy's got a working toaster in it. The mascots are kind of crazy and like full-size Pop-Tarts. So congrats to the Pop-Tarts Bowl for your branding and your scheme on making something an enjoyable product to watch in the middle of bowl season while we're all waiting for the next college football playoff game. So Pop-Tarts Bowl number 2 in the interesting Lures World News. Number 3, Barnes & Noble plans to open up 60 new stores in 2026. The old story with Borders and Barnes & Noble is that they're declining and that the bookstores are being run out of business. But they are coming back. So huzzah to bookstores. People need a place to read physical books and to be in that space. And the kids love coming to that space. I brought my kid, my mom came to visit, and one of the first things that she wanted to do was bring the kids to the bookstore. And we did, and it was great. They loved it. So Barnes & Noble, huzzah to you. I think that's a cool story. Please open up those stores. Let's bring the bookstores back. That brings us to our next segment, second to last segment, the Arts and Literature Review of things I'm watching and film, literature, and TV during the week. Any arts and any entertainment. Yeah, film, literature, actual art, music. And we're going to start with what I accidentally started with before, NYC Midnight. They have a short story contest. I've done it several times. I've advanced to the second round once and finished top 5 in my group. You're randomly assigned a genre, a character type, and some sort of wild card. And then you have a limited amount of time to write a short story with a word limit. And as a writer, I didn't do it last year because I told myself I would work on the novel I'm working on. Novel didn't get a lot accomplished in my novel. In my working project, my WIP, WIP, did not get a lot accomplished last year. So I regret not doing it last year. I think I'll get back into it this year. So, NYC Midnight Short Story Contest. I'm coming back. Hopefully that's able to spark some creativity, because it's an interesting exercise, because it gets you working in genres and with characters that you wouldn't work with normally, and you just have a very limited time to write, so you gotta get out of your own way. Which, if you are in writing, you know that's one of the hardest things, is to just put pen to paper, get out of your own way, get something on a document that is a complete and submittable draft. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. That's my mantra as I move forward with my own writing this year. Number 2, Star Trek: The Next Generation. My wife and I have a digital antenna which connects to some actual live channels and gets pretty good reception. It's a very good investment. It's like $29.99 on Amazon. You connect it to the little actual cable thing in the back of your TV. Those aren't used too much in an age of streaming, but we watch a lot of regular over-the-air TV on that digital antenna. And one of the channels that comes in is the Heroes and Icons channel. And every night at 9 p.m., we watch Star Trek. And it's a good rewatch. It really shows some interesting themes. I'm going to get into that in my closing monologue. But Star Trek was ahead of its time in the 80s and 90s in The Next Generation. And it's really been ahead of its time in all those, at least the first couple of shows that came out with Star Trek. The original series, The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, all awesome in their own ways. I think it kind of started going downhill with Voyager. Not as good. But I'm a big fan of Next Generation, and we saw some good shows with that. And finally, number 3, whenever I'm tempted to just go out in the woods and just have a cabin and get off grid, I watch Alone, which is a really cool series. And it tells me, like, you do not want to do that. Because they struggle, and we struggle when we are left alone in the woods. So we are meant to live in community with people. And being alone in the woods, I think the longest alone participant the longest ever in all their series, in all their different seasons. The longest one lasted, 76 or 78 days? Did he get to 90? I don't know. But the most of the winners, they make it 40 to 60 days. Because that long alone in the wilderness, especially when it gets cold, is a long time to try to maintain a shelter that you build yourself and get food on your own. But it's a great watch. You pick your favorites, you root for them, and you hope they win. So Alone is another series that I've been watching. That brings us to our closing monologue. I try to keep these podcast episodes to between 45 and 60 minutes. And we're right at 44, which is the perfect time for a closing monologue. And it relates to Star Trek and how to deal in an age of AI. And Star Trek: The Next Generation provides some lessons with how they deal with both Data, who is a highly advanced android, along with the computer, which is more like what we have for AI, like Gemini or ChatGPT. If you're looking for basic facts, you ask the computer, They provide that fact. You push back on the computer when you just want more, you want more clarification. You keep pushing with your prompts. And you are in control of the prompts that you use, but you don't just randomly take that and just present it as your own work. On Star Trek The Next Generation, when they asked a computer to help them with problems, they continue using that data to solve the problems on their own because they use it as a tool rather than a crutch. I think too often in education, especially when we see teachers using AI as well, the teacher will generate the lesson using AI. Then the student will use AI to complete the lesson without reading it. And then the teacher will grade the lesson using AI without reading it. So in this process, what sort of education is actually taking place? If your assignments can be, if you're generating assignments using AI without reading it, and the students are completing without grading it, both the teacher and the student are missing something here. They're missing a point. I think I might have to sneeze. Saw that one coming. Bless you. Thank you, random person out there. Hopefully. So if you saw that, it happens. And again, I can't edit it out. So going back to my point, because I think I'm onto something pretty interesting here. Star Trek The Next Generation shows us how we can use advanced generative AI to be a tool to help solve complex problems. When they're flying through space, they're dealing with all the different complexities associated with space travel and new planets and they need to use and analyze a great deal of data. So all of the characters on that show will ask computer questions and then take that data and move forward with whatever they're solving. That's a good direction of using AI as a tool to solve complex problems rather than something to just see something, print something without reading it, and submit it. And especially if the teacher is then taking that and grading it without reading it very closely. That's a problem. You gotta read what it says. So I think having opportunities available for things like debates, speeches, you can use AI to help you get some data for these. But ultimately, if you're performing that, if you're creating podcasts and videos and having live debates, now there's learning taking place using that information, that data that you're gathering, because you also have to verify it. You see things like Morgan and Morgan got in trouble by submitting court documents in which I think something like 8 out of 11 of the cases that are cited as evidence in their brief are completely hallucinated. So you have to check what we have for generative AI, because it's not as advanced as the computer in Star Trek. But even the computer in Star Trek, which is fairly advanced, they don't just it's used as a tool to solve complex problems. That's the direction I think we need to take. Because then you look at the the advanced mode of AI, and that's the character of Data. Data's not the captain of the Enterprise. Captain Picard is. Data's not the first officer. Riker is. So, but Data is a major high-ranking officer on the bridge of the Enterprise in Star Trek The Next Generation. And there's a great episode where there's a time loop. So the Enterprise has somehow entered a time loop where they're going through the same few days over and over again, and it always ends the same way. Another ship emerges from the time loop. They're on a collision course. Picard asks the other members of the bridge what to do about it. Riker gives an answer. And Data gives an answer. And Picard keeps picking Data's answer. And then his answer does not provide enough space to clear the other ship, and the Enterprise explodes and then resets itself in this weird Groundhog Day sort of time loop. But there are clues that something is wrong within that time loop, and that the time doesn't match up. They think like time has elapsed, injuries have taken place that aren't explained, and they slowly realize that something is amiss on the Enterprise. And then Data, the AI, the android, figures out exactly what is going on because they start leaving clues for themselves for their later variants to figure out. And he figures out once the climax of that episode, the climactic event, when they come out of that, when the other ship emerges again, and Riker gives a suggestion, and Picard calls on Data. Data looks at Riker and says, like, you need to follow Riker's suggestion. There's not enough time. And he's like, were you able to figure that out? We've left clues for ourselves. And then when they talk to the other ship's captain, when they are safely out of their collision course, and they tell him what year it is, that ship has been in that loop for something like 87 years. So that was really interesting. That AI in this case, Picard was leaning too much on it and deferring to Data because he was a brilliant robot with all the answers. But even Data told him to trust Riker because of that. He was able to solve that puzzle, and Data's able to solve a lot of puzzles in this when he's tasked with finding the puzzle pieces and making them match up out of all the information available, finding the answers. He's very good at that, which is why Picard leans on him so much. But he's also able to figure out when he's not the answer. And he says you should listen to Riker. Because Riker, with his unpredictable human element, should get more credit too. After all, he defeated the Borg in one of the major two-part episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation, where he saved Captain Picard and humanity in defeating the Borg cube when it was about to destroy Earth. And Data also was a big part of helping him do that. So, the long story short of this closing monologue, the answers or for how to use AI, Star Trek provides a good platform, good foundation to move forward from that I think could be a much more useful answer than what I'm seeing a lot of as a teacher and an administrator. And that's this: two ships passing in the night. Instructors using AI to build and grade lessons. Students using AI and without reading what it's producing. Not a lot of education is taking place here. But yet, if we look at it more like the computer or Data, you can't make Data the captain of the Enterprise, but he should be on the bridge. That's the lesson here. Because we also watched a very awkward episode where Data gets a girlfriend, and it's terrible. Data's terrible at romance because AI is terrible at romance, which is why these weird chatbot scammers who are trying to get what they want via romance, it's like, it is cringe because it's obviously working on some folks. That's an entirely separate topic for a later episode. The one from this episode, the takeaway is not how awkward Data is at dating. And if you want to look that up, look up the Star Trek Next Generation episode where Data gets a girlfriend. It's almost unwatchable how cringe it is. But the lesson for solving complex problems using AI, don't make Data the captain of the Enterprise. Have him on the bridge, though. And that can help you make your own decisions. And on that note, have a great Thursday. and may all your Thursdays be a Lurzday Thursday. Lurz out.